Whenever the Oscar season comes around, there's a reason why it isn't the most deft performances or the most subtle that tend to be awarded with recognition. Sure, there can be exceptions to that rule, where indie films win notoriety despite their understatement, but the performances involved rarely gain as much attention as the more explosive or quote-unquote important performances. Alongside those markers, Hollywood's gold givers also tend to be drawn to the most intense performances, just as we as audiences tend to remember them more. They leave a mark, after all, and it's always the performances that cut just within the limits of overacting and self-indulgence, which find balance and realism and hyperbole that linger the longest. I'm Josh from WhatCulture.com, and these are the 10 most intense movie performances of all time.
Hey, just quickly to pop in before the list actually starts, I just want to talk to you about That Film Theory. If you don't know what that is yet, it's a brand new channel that's going to be about video essays, cinematic experiences, a bit more relaxed approach. Hopefully we'll see you there. You can find the details down below.
Number 10. Heath Ledger's Joker, The Dark Knight. With The Dark Knight, despite his casting being sneered at wildly at the time, Heath Ledger changed perceptions of what actors could do in superhero movies. Not least because he won an Oscar, though even that seems like scant reward for what he achieved as the new generation's Joker. That's right, he's still the new generation's Joker because nobody else, to my knowledge, has played the part since. Am I forgetting one? No? Good. In contrast to Jack Nicholson's camped-edge Joker, Ledger crafted a performance closer to Nicholson's turn in The Shining, captivating, animated, and terrifying in equal measure. He might not have been a physical match for Batman, though taking a beating with a smile is one way to render him impotent, but he was capable of something far more dangerous. He could destroy Batman's mind. He's an orchestra of affections and tics, demented and playful, and knowing the cost of the performance on Ledger makes him even more difficult to watch in retrospect. Number 9. Paddy Considine's Richard, Dead Man's Shoes. If there was any justice in the world, Paddy Considine would be a far more well-known name than he is. His finest moments so far, though, came in Shane Meadows' brilliant Dead Man's Shoes, which is so transformed by its heartbreaking twist that it offers almost two entirely different Considine performances. The first, watched without knowledge of the end, presents him as a twisted badass, viscerally affecting and terrifyingly unhinged. He's the monster in a slasher movie, and he's exactly as compelling as intoxicating as the likes of Michael Myers and Jason Voorhees. Also, if there was anyone who could take the crown for being the best swearer in the What Culture office away from James Hunt, it would be this guy. But then when his secret is revealed and his wounds become clear, the true horror of his behaviour is unveiled, and your perception of the whole film changes. You don't just appreciate his dark cool anymore, you live his trauma, and it's incredibly affecting. Number 8. Joe Pesci's Tommy, Goodfellas. Though he's based on a real-life mobster of even more disturbing reputation, Tommy DeSimone is still one of Hollywood's most notorious monsters. And thanks to Joe Pesci's explosive performance, he's one of the most discomforting figures in film history. The biggest testament to his volatility and to the intensity of Joe Pesci's stunning performance as a whole comes when he flips on Henry Hill for his own amusement, goading him for saying "why is he funny" simply as an exercise in intimidation. He's just busting balls, but you get a real insight into what he really is, not only in the way he acts, but also in the way Hill reacts. There's a real terror there before he realizes it's all just a ruse. Like the best Pesci characters, he's a hand grenade, but in the case of Goodfellas, we actually see it explode more than once. Number 7. Emily Watson's Angela McCourt, Angela's Ashes. Just like other movies such as The Pianist, Angela's Ashes is a harrowing ordeal made all the more difficult to take by the True Story label on the front of it. It's something of a travesty that the film was never as appreciated on release as it deserved to be, particularly as it contains a stunning performance by Emily Watson, who plays the very heart of the story, Angela McCourt. Her story is one of despair and tragedy, not a portrait of triumph over adversity per se, more a celebration of persistence. Angela endures, quietly for the most part, and struggles on against some of the worst possible circumstances. She lives in abject poverty, exacerbated by her husband's alcoholism, which murders her children and shatters her dreams. Rough stuff. However, her intensity comes through in her resilience and how she deals with the unending grief of her life, and there are few performances quite like it. Number 6. Sir Ben Kingsley's Don Logan, Sexy Beast. There's something about gangster movies that just breeds intense performances. Whatever the agenda or reason though, Jonathan Glazer and Sir Ben Kingsley crafted one of the most intimidating characters in the genre in 2000's Sexy Beast. Don Logan is exactly what you would expect from a man whose MO is recruiting the worst of the worst for his underworld bosses. He's darkly charming, completely unhinged, and so obsessively convinced of his own persuasiveness that it barely matters what his targets feel. He's a whirlwind that progressively spins wilder as he's rejected in his agenda. It's no real wonder Kingsley picked up an Oscar nom for the performance, as Logan would have been furious if he didn't win. Number 5. Robert Carlyle's Begbie, Trainspotting. Some actors are just made to play volatile roles, and Robert Carlyle definitely sits up at the top of that particular pile of talents. Sure, he has range and plays everyman characters well thanks to his Caledonian warmth, but he's never better than when he's invited to go absolutely batshit insane. The role that very much announced Robert Carlyle to the world, though, was Danny Boyle's Trainspotting, in which he played the worryingly unhinged Francis Begbie. He's a hand grenade with a hair trigger, as quick to violence as he is to profanity and glassing people in pubs. Every scene he appears in is uncomfortably tense, but there is a disarming attractiveness to him, which can be the only reason he has any quote-unquote friends to begin with. Number 4. Charlize Theron's Eileen Wuornos, Monster. Not only is Charlize Theron's performance in Monster stunningly intense, it's also one of the most convincingly transformative of all time. That's of course helped by the makeup and the prosthetics, but it's solidified by the way Theron nails Wuornos' mannerisms and tics to make her completely unrecognizable. She channels that same irresistible, morbid fascination that the real-life killer managed in her infamous documentary with Nick Brumfield. And while there's a lot of subtlety to her range and her vulnerability, it's easy to forget after all that Wuornos is a victim of abuse herself. The performance is showy in all the right ways and gripping in its intensity. And crucially, she is powerfully compelling without the film ever stooping to glamorize her. Number 3. Robert De Niro's Jake LaMotta, Raging Bull. For a lot of people, Robert De Niro is Mr. Intensity, and even has an outside claim for the crown of Mr. Method. Though Daniel Day-Lewis and Christian Bale would have something to say about that, no doubt. However, his turn as Jake LaMotta is the single best example of his commitment to method acting. To play the legendary boxer, he brutalized himself, allowing his weight to balloon for LaMotta's post-fight career to the extent that it had a lasting impact on his posture and health. Even without that though, LaMotta is animalistic and rage-filled, a well-liked legend with a nasty streak to end them all, whose crippling self-doubt and paranoia destroys everybody he loves. And as he spirals down the hole of his own creation, De Niro makes it impossible to look away. Number 2. Al Pacino's Tony Montana, Scarface. There's no doubting that Al Pacino's Tony Montana is an animal, but the true power of his performance lies in the fact that he's still able to find some glimmer of empathy in his creation. Sure, he's a wild, ostentatious figure defined by excess of personality and behavior, but there's still a wounded humanity about him that makes him perversely likable. Ultimately, Pacino paints the portrait of a man obsessed with winning, no matter what the cost, and while we can see his end coming from a mile off before the film actually climaxes, it's almost endearing how little the character does. He may have been reduced to a couple of sound bites by now, but the entire performance and its nuances warrant for more praise than screaming about little friends. Number 1. Jack Nicholson's Jack Torrance, The Shining. It's hard to say much about Jack Nicholson's flayed nerve turners writer-turned-psychopath Jack Torrance in The Shining that hasn't been said 100 times before, probably on this channel. He's almost a walking meme, thanks to that shot of him peering through his own axe wound, you know the one, but focusing on only a single moment would be way too reductive and a disservice to the performance as a whole. Nicholson offers a complete transformation that impacts everything about the character, from the way he moves to the very way he speaks, and it's all wrapped up in the distinct manic energy that the actor is known for. He starts off as a victim of his own haunting, but by the end he's a tour de force of dangerous delusion and psychosis. And while Stephen King claimed that he was too close to crazy to begin with, it's just not correct to criticize. So that's our list. Let me know down in the comments below which actors I missed off. I know Daniel Day-Lewis is probably going to be a big one, but while you're there, please also give us a like, share, and a subscribe, and even head over to whatculture.com if you like more lists like this. As always, I've been Josh, you've been watching What Culture, and I'll see you soon.